Hidden deep in the files of Mario Kart Double Dash, multiple sprites and models imply that there was supposed to be some sort of reverse cup in the game. While it's not known exactly what this would have been, it's believed to be some sort of mode where you complete tracks backwards. But that got me thinking, how many tracks in Mario Kart Double Dash can be completed backwards? It sounds like a simple question, but it's actually a bit complicated. In this video, I'll be using all of my knowledge acquired from years of experience speedrunning this game to try to complete as many courses backwards in time trial mode as possible. Before we begin, let's get some obvious ones out of the way. Flat courses with no ramps or jumps are pretty much guaranteed to be possible. The most obvious example is Baby Park, which you probably wouldn't even be able to tell which way I was driving if you weren't familiar with the game. There are many more courses like this that we can go ahead and check off as possible. Peach Beach, Dry Desert, Mushroom Bridge, Mario Circuit, Daisy Cruiser, Sherbet Land, Mushroom City, and Yoshi Circuit. Dino Jungle looks like it may be made difficult by this ramp, but turns out the backside of it is sloped and you can just scale up it. So that's already 10 tracks confirmed possible. Over half of the tracks in the game, nice. The first track in the game, Luigi Circuit, is mostly flat and looks like it might be possible. However, these two boost panel platforms create a big enough elevation difference that is impossible to cross. Now, thanks to the track's layout, you can technically drive forward to the boost panels, go to the very edge of the platform, and drive back around backwards, but I feel like this shouldn't count. However, luckily there's actually a way to get up here. In Mario Kart Double Dash, there's a technique known as A-Tech, where you release the drift and accelerate button at the same time, then simultaneously repress them. This makes it so that you can drift straight on straightaways, which can save time in speedruns. However, if you release the drift and accelerate buttons at different times, it can create some unintended effects. One of these is known as an A-Tech hop. By releasing the A button a bit before the drift button, you can gain a bit of airtime that can be used to potentially clear ledges. I knew that the first ramp platform could be cleared with one of these, since that's actually how you do the lap shortcut on this track. I figured the second one would also be possible since it's about the same height, so I used the Bullet Blaster, the game's bounciest part, to see if I could pull it off. But then, I remembered something. I suck at glitches. I tried for a bit but did not get anywhere near close enough. So I consulted the experts. iMathII and ElectroTDS are the two best glitchers in the world. They've set a ton of glitch world records and have been the two people responsible for pretty much every glitch discovery in the last couple of years. I asked them if they thought it was possible, and both said that it had been done before, but neither of them had a video. But until I saw proof of it with my own eyes, I refused to mark this track as completable. So I kept trying, but Electro also did some attempts for himself. And that's when he sent me this. If you did this A-Tech hop, you could continue driving backwards, do the other one, and officially complete this track backwards. Waluigi Stadium has a ramp at the end of the track that complicates what would otherwise be a simple course to complete. I tried to clear this gap by just driving over it, and got extremely close a few times, but couldn't quite pull it off. If you find a way to clear this gap without going out of bounds and get it on video, please comment below or reach out to me on Discord. Luckily though, falling off here just respawns you on the other side, making the track completable. I already knew that DK Mountain was mostly possible due to a speedrun challenge I did back in 2023. You can even do this sick backwards gap shortcut. However, there is one massive barrier to doing this track backwards. There's a ginormous gap between the mountain and the track beforehand, and a fence which blocks it off. It looks like you can maybe squeeze through this crevice between the fence and the mountain, but there's an invisible wall preventing that from happening. However, I still had one idea. Using the parade cart, by releasing a mini turbo while landing on the ground, you can sometimes clip through the floor. About a year ago, I made a video that explains how this works in more detail if you're interested. But in order to get a floor clip, you need to get airtime somehow. I had a plan though. By going off this slope at the top of the mountain, you get the perfect amount of height to make a clip happen, and then maybe, just maybe, it'd respawn you before the cannon. I did some attempts and got extremely close a couple times, but before I continued, I wanted to make sure this was worth my time. Using a moon jump code, I tested to see what would happen if I were to clip out of bounds here, and sure enough, it showed that I would respawn at the finish line. Would this be able to be considered completing the track backwards? Honestly, I wasn't sure, but the mere prospect of potentially pulling off a backwards completion was too tempting to resist. So I spent hours continuing to try the clip, still getting very close but not quite getting all the way through the track. I continued attempts while sharing some close ones with iMath and Electro, but that's when Electro delivered some bad news. He mentioned that another player found that some roads have double collisions since the developers were probably clipping through them while testing. And unfortunately, it seemed like the mountain on DKM was one of these areas. So I called off the attempts. If you can pull off a clip here, please leave a comment or reach out to me on Discord. But for now, we can probably rule out DK Mountain from being completable. Wario Coliseum is very similar to Waluigi Stadium in that it has a jump ramp at the end of the track that can't be cleared backwards. However, unlike Waluigi Stadium, this one respawns you after the ramp. Even if you were respawned before the ramp, this giant ramp seems like it'd thwart your attempt anyways. So Wario Coliseum is impossible, right? Well, not quite. Back in 2021, MKDD tool-assisted speedrunner CowGuy posted a task completing, you guessed it, Wario Coliseum backwards. Not only that, he did it without respawning once. To get past the ending ramp, he did a precise setup involving an A-Tech hop that allowed him to clear the gap. Then, on the giant ramp, another precise A-Tech hop actually allows you to get sucked up through the track and complete the remainder backwards. Now, all of this is fully possible humanly, however, it would take me hours, if not days, to pull this off. I suck at glitches. But since it is humanly possible, and there's video proof of it being possible, I feel like that's more than enough to count it. Bowser's Castle runs into the same predicament as Wario Coliseum, where a ramp at the end of the track obstructs you from advancing any further. However, there might be a way to game the system a bit here. The Shortcut World Records here have used our good old friend the A-Tech hop here for quite some time. By doing one at the start of the race, you can actually bounce up to the respawn zone for this upper balcony area. But now we're really stretching things. This respawn puts you about 55% of the way through the track, meaning that in backwards terms, you're skipping nearly half the track. Now, from here, you can continue driving backwards and reach the finish line, but should skipping this much track still count? I don't know, I'll let you decide. Feel free to share your thoughts on this in the comments, I'm curious as to what you all think. And last, but maybe least, is Rainbow Road. This one is almost immediately halted by, you guessed it, a ramp at the end of the track. This one is especially bad as the ramp part is above the landing area, and there's no real slope on the landing area that you can use to jump off of. And just like Wario Coliseum and Bowser's Castle, falling off here respawns you after the ramp. There's a way to get up this ramp, but it requires items only available in Grand Prix, and we've been using time trials for all the other tracks so far, so for the sake of consistency, we're not going to count it. Even if you were able to get past this ramp, you're then stuck trying to get past this fenced-in area at the elevator landing. There's no slopes to get air for a floor clip, and the invisible walls are probably too high for an A-Tech hop. Falling off here just respawns you before the ending ramp, and using Moonjump to go out of bounds just respawns you back at the finish line. There's two more big ramps that can't be completed via respawn either. As much as I want to believe this track is possible, and as much as you try to stretch the definition of completing the track backwards, I genuinely don't think this one can be done. If anyone finds a way to get past any of these 4 obstacles in time trials, please leave a comment or contact me on Discord. But as far as I can tell, there's basically no way this one is possible. So, in conclusion, 13 tracks are completely possible driving backwards, 12 of which can be done without respawning. One track is technically kind of possible, but definitely stretches the definition of completing the track backwards. One track is maybe possible, but probably not, and would also be stretching the definition a bit. And only in one track, Rainbow Road, is almost certainly impossible. With how many tracks can be completed backwards, it's a bit sad to see the Reverse Cup get scrapped. But it's still cool that the game's physics can be exploited in so many ways, and that so many tracks can be completed backwards as a result. Thanks for watching.